The year 350 marks a significant moment in the history of Indonesia with the emergence of the Kutai Martadipura Kingdom, located in what is now East Kalimantan. This early kingdom is notable for producing the first known stone inscriptions in Indonesia, providing critical insights into the development of civilization in the archipelago. The Kutai inscriptions, written in ancient Sanskrit, signify the early presence of Hindu culture and religion in the region. These inscriptions are believed to have been commissioned by King Mulawarman, a powerful ruler whose reign is documented through these stone-carved records. The Kutai Martadipura Kingdom, therefore, represents one of the earliest instances of organized political structure and cultural exchange in Indonesia. The inscriptions found in Kutai are written in the Pallava script, which originated from southern India, indicating an early exchange between the Indian subcontinent and the Indonesian archipelago. This cultural transmission brought Hinduism, which deeply influenced the political and social structures of the Kutai Kingdom. The religion not only provided a framework for governance, but also served to legitimize the power of the ruling elite. King Mulawarman, who is prominently mentioned in the inscriptions, is described as a generous and devout king who made significant religious offerings, reinforcing the integration of Hindu rituals into the fabric of the kingdom's culture. The stone inscriptions themselves are valuable archaeological artifacts, shedding light on the early stages of literacy and record-keeping in Indonesia. These records detail the donations made by King Mulawarman to Brahmins, further illustrating the prominence of religious and ceremonial practices within the kingdom. The inscriptions provide evidence of a sophisticated society, with a clear social hierarchy, where the king held the highest position, followed by the Brahmins, who played an essential role in religious and spiritual matters. This societal structure, influenced by Indian Hindu traditions, laid the foundation for future kingdoms across the Indonesian archipelago. The significance of the Kutai Kingdom extends beyond its religious and political developments. It represents a critical juncture in Indonesia's early history, demonstrating the region's active participation in larger global trade networks. The presence of Indian culture, as evidenced by the inscriptions, indicates that the Indonesian archipelago was already a part of extensive maritime routes that facilitated the exchange of goods, ideas, and religious beliefs. The spread of Hinduism to Kutai can be seen as part of this broader process of cultural diffusion that was taking place across Southeast Asia during this period. The year 450 marks an important period in the history of Indonesia, particularly in West Java, where several significant stone inscriptions were created. Among these, the Tugu inscription stands out as one of the most important, shedding light on the reign of King Purnavarman of the Tarumanagara Kingdom. Tarumanagara was one of the earliest Indianized kingdoms in Java, and Purnavarman is recognized as one of its most prominent rulers. The inscriptions, written in Pallava script and using the Sanskrit language, offer a glimpse into the political, religious, and infrastructural achievements of this early Javanese kingdom. These stone carvings serve as vital records for understanding the development of early Indonesian civilization and the impact of Indian influence in the region. The Tugu inscription, in particular, details an important decree by King Purnavarman concerning the construction of a canal that connected the Kekung and Gomati rivers. This infrastructural project not only improved irrigation for agricultural purposes, but also helped prevent flooding, showcasing the king's concern for the welfare of his people and the prosperity of his kingdom. The completion of such a large-scale engineering project indicates the sophistication of Tarumanagara society and its ability to organize and mobilize labor for public works. The inscription also highlights the connection between the king and divine authority, as the successful completion of the canal was attributed to the favor of the gods, particularly Vishnu, a key deity in Hinduism. King Purnavarman's reign, as revealed by the inscriptions, was marked by both political power and religious devotion. His rule was seen as just and prosperous, reinforced by his association with Hindu religious practices, which had been introduced to Java through contact with the Indian subcontinent. The inscriptions indicate that Purnavarman performed various rituals and offerings to the gods, further solidifying his role as a king who ruled by divine right. This connection between religion and political authority is a common theme in many early Southeast Asian kingdoms influenced by Indian culture, where rulers often aligned themselves with Hindu or Buddhist traditions to legitimize their reign. The inscriptions also reflect the broader cultural and economic exchanges that were occurring during this period, as the spread of Indian influence in Java is evident not only in religious practices, but also in language, art, and governance. The use of Sanskrit and Pallava script in the inscriptions demonstrates the level of interaction between the Tarumanagara kingdom and Indian traders, scholars, and religious figures. These interactions likely occurred through maritime trade routes, which connected the Indonesian archipelago to India and other parts of Asia. Tarumanagara's adoption of Hinduism and Indian culture illustrates how global influences were integrated into local traditions, shaping the identity of early Indonesian kingdoms. In the year 664, an important record of the Kalinga kingdom, also known as Holing, was mentioned in Chinese historical sources. The reference came from Ait Sing, a Chinese Buddhist monk from the Tang dynasty, who wrote about the existence of this kingdom located on the northern coast of central Java. Kalinga is considered one of the earliest kingdoms in the region, with strong connections to both Indian and Chinese cultures. Its mention in Ait Sing's work highlights the importance of Java as part of a larger network of kingdoms that engaged in cultural and economic exchanges across Southeast Asia and beyond. Kalinga's strategic location on the northern coast of central Java made it a crucial hub for maritime trade, particularly between India and China. The kingdom was likely influenced by Hindu-Buddhist practices, similar to other early Indonesian kingdoms, such as Tarumanagara and Srivijaya. While much of Kalinga's history remains obscure due to the lack of extensive archaeological evidence, Ait Sing's accounts help fill in some details about its political and cultural significance during this period. Kalinga is thought to have been ruled by Queen Shima, a legendary figure known for her strict laws and justice, further enhancing the kingdom's reputation within regional trade networks. In 671 CE, Ait Sing embarked on a significant journey that took him through various key locations in Southeast Asia on his way to the Buddhist Learning Center at Nalanda in India. His first stop was Srivijaya in Sumatra, a powerful maritime kingdom that had already established itself as a major center of Buddhist learning and trade. Srivijaya played a crucial role in supporting Buddhist monks like Ait Sing, providing them with resources and safe passage to continue their religious and scholarly pursuits. Ait Sing's visit to Srivijaya highlights the kingdom's importance as both a religious and commercial hub during the height of its influence. During his travels, Ait Sing also visited the kingdom of Malayu, located in present-day Jambi on the eastern coast of Sumatra. Malayu was another important center of power in Sumatra, though it would later be absorbed into Srivijaya's growing empire. Ait Sing's accounts offer valuable insight into the political landscape of the region at the time, indicating the existence of multiple powerful kingdoms that participated in a complex web of trade and diplomacy. His mention of these kingdoms demonstrates their involvement in the broader Indian Ocean trade network, which connected Southeast Asia to India, China, and beyond. In the year 683, Dapunta Hyang, Sri Jayanasa, the first recorded ruler of Srivijaya, embarked on a significant journey known as the Siddhayatra, a spiritual and political expedition aimed at expanding his influence. This event is chronicled in several key inscriptions, including the Telaga Batu, Talang Tuo, and Kedukan Bukit inscriptions, which provide invaluable details about the early history of Srivijaya and its rise to power. The Siddhayatra is seen as a pivotal moment in the establishment of Srivijaya's hegemony over the maritime regions surrounding the Malacca Strait and Sunda Strait, marking the beginning of its dominance as a powerful thalassocratic empire in Southeast Asia. The Kedukan Bukit inscription, discovered near Palembang, is one of the most important records of Dapunta Hyang's Siddhayatra. It describes how Tarumanagara led a fleet of ships carrying over 20,000 soldiers on this journey, which not only had religious significance, but also strategic goals of territorial expansion. The successful completion of this voyage resulted in the consolidation of various smaller polities under Srivijaya's control, allowing the kingdom to exert influence over key maritime trade routes. This inscription highlights Srivijaya's early emphasis on naval power, a defining characteristic that would allow it to control vast stretches of Southeast Asia's waterways for centuries to come. Another crucial inscription, the Talang Tuo inscription, further illustrates the religious and spiritual dimensions of the Siddhayatra. It details the founding of a park dedicated to the welfare of all living beings, which was established by Tarumanagara. The inscription reveals the strong Buddhist undertones of Srivijaya's leadership, as Tarumanagara and his successors promoted Mahayana Buddhism as both a spiritual practice and a tool for unifying their realm. This combination of religious devotion and political ambition allowed Srivijaya to present itself as a legitimate power with both spiritual and temporal authority, making it a key center of Buddhism in the region. The Telaga Batu inscription offers additional insight into the governance and authority of Srivijaya. This inscription, which is believed to have been used in a ceremonial context, outlines the oaths of loyalty that were expected from local chiefs, military leaders, and other officials who were brought under Srivijaya's control. It underscores the centralized and hierarchical nature of the Srivijayan state, where loyalty to the ruler was paramount in maintaining the unity of the kingdom's expanding territories. The Telaga Batu inscription reflects the importance of securing allegiance from subordinate leaders, ensuring that Srivijaya's influence extended both politically and militarily throughout the maritime region. In the year 686, Srivijaya launched a significant naval invasion against the island of Java, an event documented in the Kota Kepur inscription. This inscription, found on Bangka Island, details the expansionist ambitions of Srivijaya, underlining its intention to extend its influence and control over Java. The naval campaign was likely motivated by Srivijaya's desire to dominate key maritime routes and to eliminate rival powers that could challenge its authority over the surrounding waters, particularly the Java Sea and the Sunda Strait. This invasion marked a critical step in Srivijaya's expansion and solidified its dominance in the region. The Kota Kepur inscription, written in Old Malay using Pallava script, reveals that Srivijaya aimed to subdue any disloyal or rebellious territories. The mention of a military expedition against Java suggests that there were rival polities or kingdoms on the island, possibly resisting Srivijaya's hegemony. Historians believe that this invasion may have contributed to the decline and eventual fall of the Tarumanagara kingdom, one of the earliest Indianized kingdoms in Java, which had held significant influence in the western part of the island. The fall of Tarumanagara opened the door for Srivijaya to assert greater control over Java and integrate it into its growing maritime empire. Srivijaya's military strength was largely derived from its naval capabilities, which allowed it to project power across the islands of the Indonesian archipelago. The invasion of Java demonstrated Srivijaya's strategic use of naval forces to expand its influence and secure vital trade routes. By controlling Java, Srivijaya could better regulate trade between the Indian Ocean and the South China Sea, ensuring its dominance in the lucrative spice trade. This maritime strength would remain a key feature of Srivijaya's power throughout its existence, as it built a network of alliances and subjected neighboring polities to its influence. The likely collapse of the Tarumanagara kingdom, following Srivijaya's invasion, marks an important shift in the political landscape of Java. Tarumanagara, which had flourished as a Hindu-Buddhist kingdom, was one of the major powers in the region before the rise of Srivijaya. Its decline left a vacuum that allowed Srivijaya to consolidate power and exert greater control over Western Java, aligning the island with its broader territorial ambitions. This period also reflects the intense competition between early Southeast Asian kingdoms for control of trade routes, religious influence, and political dominance. In 687, the Chinese Buddhist monk Aitsing made a significant return journey to Srivijaya after his pilgrimage to India, where he had spent time studying at the famous Buddhist University of Nalanda. On his way back to China, Aitsing stopped in Srivijaya, and in his detailed accounts, he recorded important developments in the region. One of the most notable events mentioned in his writings was the capture of the kingdom of Malayu by Srivijaya. This conquest marked a pivotal moment in Srivijaya's expansion, further solidifying its dominance in Sumatra and the broader maritime region of Southeast Asia. The Kingdom of Malayu, located in what is now Jambi on the eastern coast of Sumatra, had long been a significant center of trade and power. It controlled important inland resources and had access to major trade routes passing through the Straits of Malacca. Srivijaya's capture of Malayu allowed it to secure these trade routes and strengthen its economic base, particularly in the spice trade and the movement of goods between India and China. This conquest would have enabled Srivijaya to further consolidate its control over the Sumatran coastline, making it a dominant force in the region's maritime economy. Aitsing's accounts of Srivijaya provide a unique glimpse into the cultural and religious life of the kingdom during this period. Srivijaya was not only a political and economic power, but also a major center of Buddhist learning. Aitsing reported that Srivijaya hosted hundreds of Buddhist monks, offering them a place to study and prepare for their journeys to India. The capture of Malayu likely reinforced Srivijaya's position as a key Buddhist hub, as it brought more resources and influence under its control. The kingdom's role as a religious center was closely linked to its political and military expansion, with its rulers using Buddhism to legitimize their authority and foster loyalty among their subjects. The conquest of Malayu also illustrates Srivijaya's broader strategy of expanding its influence through both diplomacy and military action. By incorporating Malayu into its sphere of influence, Srivijaya effectively eliminated a potential rival and gained greater control over the rich trade networks in the region. This expansion allowed Srivijaya to project power not only over Sumatra, but also over other key maritime routes, including those in the Malay Peninsula and the South China Sea. Srivijaya's growing influence during this period would lay the foundation for its status as a major thalassocratic empire, capable of controlling vast maritime territories and facilitating regional trade. By the year 700, the Srivijaya kingdom, based in Sumatra, had emerged as a flourishing naval and commercial power in Southeast Asia. Its strategic location, near the Malacca and Sunda Straits, allowed Srivijaya to control key maritime routes that linked the Indian Ocean to the South China Sea. This position made Srivijaya a vital hub for international trade, particularly in spices, precious metals, and luxury goods moving between India, China, and the Middle East. As a result, Srivijaya not only grew in economic power, but also became a center of cultural and religious exchange, attracting traders and scholars from across the region and beyond. Srivijaya's naval prowess was central to its success. With a strong fleet, the kingdom was able to protect its trade interests and exert influence over neighboring regions. Its naval dominance ensured that Srivijaya could maintain control over shipping lanes and extract tribute from smaller polities along these routes. This control over maritime trade allowed Srivijaya to accumulate wealth and resources, which further strengthened its naval capabilities and facilitated the expansion of its influence throughout the Indonesian archipelago and the Malay Peninsula. In addition to its economic and naval power, Srivijaya was also a prominent center for the spread of Mahayana Buddhism. The kingdom became a key stop for Buddhist monks traveling between India and China, serving as both a religious and educational hub. Notably, Srivijaya provided facilities for scholars like the Chinese monk Aitsing, who spent years in the kingdom translating and studying Buddhist texts. The religious prestige of Srivijaya helped legitimize its rulers and cemented its role as a leader in the broader Buddhist world, drawing further connections with other Buddhist centers across Asia. Srivijaya's political structure was organized around a network of alliances and vassal states. The kingdom's rulers were skilled in diplomacy, using both military strength and strategic marriages to secure the loyalty of regional leaders. This network of tributary states allowed Srivijaya to extend its influence across vast distances without the need for direct control over all of its territories. By managing relationships with smaller kingdoms and integrating them into its sphere of influence, Srivijaya maintained a flexible but effective empire that was able to adapt to shifting regional dynamics and trade demands. In the year 718, a significant diplomatic event took place when Sri Indravarman, the king of Srivijaya, sent a letter to Caliph Umar bin Abdul Aziz of the Umayyad Caliphate in Damascus. This marked one of the earliest recorded instances of official contact between an ancient Indonesian kingdom and the Islamic world in the Middle East. The correspondence between Srivijaya and the Umayyad Caliphate is a testament to the kingdom's far-reaching influence and its strategic role in the international trade networks that connected Southeast Asia with the broader world, including the Middle East. This contact would lay the groundwork for future interactions between the Indonesian archipelago and the Islamic world. The letter sent by King Sri Indravarman to the Umayyad Caliphate is believed to have contained a request for assistance in religious matters, possibly related to Buddhist learning, and it also expressed goodwill toward the Islamic ruler. Although Srivijaya at this time was a predominantly Buddhist kingdom, its leaders were keenly aware of the growing power and influence of the Islamic Caliphate. The Umayyads controlled vast territories that stretched from Spain to the edges of Central Asia, and they were becoming increasingly important players in the global trade network. By establishing diplomatic relations with the Caliphate, Srivijaya likely sought to ensure that its vital trade routes to the Middle East remained secure and that it could maintain access to lucrative markets in the Islamic world. This diplomatic exchange highlights the cosmopolitan nature of Srivijaya during its peak. The kingdom was not only a center for Buddhist learning, but also engaged in diplomacy with powers across Asia and beyond. By the early 8th century, Srivijaya had already established itself as a dominant maritime power in Southeast Asia, controlling key trade routes and facilitating the movement of goods such as spices, precious metals, and textiles. The letter to the Caliphate underscores Srivijaya's interest in maintaining stable and peaceful relations with other major powers, ensuring that its status as a key player in global trade would remain unchallenged. The correspondence between Sri Indravarman and the Umayyad Caliphate also reflects the broader patterns of cultural and religious exchange that characterized the Indian Ocean trade routes. While Srivijaya was a stronghold of Mahayana Buddhism, its interactions with the Islamic world were likely driven by pragmatic considerations. The rising influence of Islamic merchants, particularly in ports along the Arabian Peninsula and the Persian Gulf, would have made it beneficial for Srivijaya to foster good relations with the Muslim rulers who controlled these regions. This early contact between Srivijaya and the Islamic world would foreshadow the later spread of Islam to the Indonesian archipelago in subsequent centuries. In the year 732, the founding of the Sanjaya dynasty in central Java marked a significant development in the early history of Indonesia. According to the Kangal inscription, which is one of the primary sources documenting this event, the dynasty was established by King Sanjaya, a powerful ruler who was deeply devoted to the Hindu religion, particularly the worship of Shiva. The inscription, written in Sanskrit and Pallava script, was found at the foot of Mount Wukar in central Java and provides insights into the early Hindu kingdoms that flourished in the region. The Sanjaya dynasty would go on to play a pivotal role in shaping the political and religious landscape of Java for centuries. The Kangal inscription reveals that King Sanjaya not only founded a new dynasty, but also performed rituals to legitimize his rule and assert his authority. It describes how Sanjaya, upon coming to power, constructed a linga, a symbol of the god Shiva, to sanctify the land and invoke divine protection over his kingdom. This act of religious devotion reflects the close connection between political authority and religious legitimacy in early Javanese kingdoms. Sanjaya's association with Hinduism and specifically the Shaiva tradition, helped establish his rule and differentiate his dynasty from other regional powers, some of which were influenced by Buddhism. The establishment of the Sanjaya dynasty occurred during a time of growing competition among regional powers in Java and across the Indonesian archipelago. The rise of Sanjaya can be seen as part of a broader trend in which local rulers sought to consolidate their authority and expand their influence through both military conquests and religious patronage. Sanjaya's control over the fertile plains of central Java allowed him to build a strong economic base, which in turn enabled him to fund large-scale religious and cultural projects. This early period of the Sanjaya dynasty laid the groundwork for the later architectural achievements seen in the region, including the construction of temples and monuments that reflect the Hindu cosmology. Despite its initial strength, the Sanjaya dynasty would eventually come into conflict with other emerging powers in Java, particularly the Buddhist Sailendra dynasty. These rivalries shaped much of the political dynamics in central Java over the coming centuries, as the two dynasties vied for control of key resources and territories. The Sanjaya dynasty, with its strong Hindu orientation, represented one side of this competition, while the Sailendras, who were supporters of Mahayana Buddhism, represented another. These dynastic rivalries, however, also contributed to a rich cultural exchange, as both Hinduism and Buddhism coexisted and influenced the development of Javanese art, architecture, and religious practices. In the year 752, the Hindu Mataram kingdom in central Java was flourishing, marking a significant period of political, economic, and cultural development in Indonesian history. The Mataram kingdom, also known as the Medang Kingdom, was centered in the Kedu and Ku plains of central Java, an area known for its fertile lands and strategic location. This enabled the kingdom to establish a strong agricultural base, which became the backbone of its economy. The wealth generated from rice cultivation and trade allowed Mataram's rulers to invest in religious and cultural projects, further solidifying the kingdom's influence in the region. The rulers of the Mataram kingdom were devout followers of Hinduism, particularly the Shaiva tradition, which was reflected in the temples and monuments they built. The kingdom's flourishing was characterized by the construction of grand Hindu temples dedicated to Shiva and other deities, many of which still stand today. These temples not only served as religious centers, but also as symbols of the ruler's power and divine legitimacy. The prominence of Hinduism during this period indicates the deep cultural and religious ties that Mataram had with the Indian subcontinent, as Indian influences continued to shape the kingdom's art, architecture, and political institutions. During this time, Mataram's political structure was centralized, with the king holding supreme authority over the kingdom's territories. The rulers of Mataram were known for their ability to unite various smaller polities under their control, thus expanding their influence across central Java and beyond. This expansion of power was achieved through both military conquests and diplomatic marriages, which helped strengthen the kingdom's position in the region. The strong leadership of the Mataram kings allowed the kingdom to maintain stability and security, further contributing to its prosperity. Mataram's strategic location also played a critical role in its success as a major player in regional trade networks. Situated between the Indian Ocean and the South China Sea, the kingdom was well positioned to benefit from the growing maritime trade routes that connected India, Southeast Asia, and China. This not only brought wealth and resources to the kingdom, but also facilitated cultural exchanges, leading to the adoption and adaptation of foreign artistic and religious influences. The integration of trade and culture helped Mataram maintain its status as a powerful and influential kingdom in the region. In the year 760, the construction of Borobudur, one of the most iconic and significant Buddhist monuments in the world, began in central Java, Indonesia. This immense project marked a major milestone in the cultural and religious development of the region, reflecting the growing influence of Mahayana Buddhism in the area during the Sailendra dynasty's rule. Borobudur was not only an architectural marvel, but also a symbol of the deep spiritual devotion that characterized the Sailendra dynasty, which embraced Buddhism as a central aspect of its rule. The decision to build such an elaborate and grand structure underscores the kingdom's wealth, power, and cultural ambition at the time. The construction of Borobudur was a monumental undertaking that spanned several decades. Built entirely out of stone, the structure was designed in the form of a massive stepped pyramid, consisting of 9 platforms with intricate carvings and reliefs. Each level of the monument represents a different stage of the Buddhist cosmological journey, culminating in the top stupa, which symbolizes enlightenment. The architecture of Borobudur is heavily influenced by Indian Buddhist concepts, but it also reflects local Javanese traditions and artistic styles, demonstrating a unique fusion of cultural elements. The scale and complexity of Borobudur's design highlight the advanced engineering and craftsmanship capabilities of the Javanese people during this period. Borobudur's construction coincided with the Sailendra dynasty's rise to prominence in central Java. The Sailendras were known for their strong support of Mahayana Buddhism, and the monument served as both a religious pilgrimage site and a political statement of the dynasty's power. Through the construction of Borobudur, the Sailendra rulers sought to align themselves with the Buddhist doctrine and promote their legitimacy as leaders who ruled with divine favor. The monument was likely intended to serve not only as a place of worship, but also as a center for Buddhist learning and reflection, attracting pilgrims and scholars from across the region. The process of building Borobudur required immense resources, both in terms of labor and materials. Thousands of workers, including artisans, stone carvers, and engineers, would have been involved in the construction, which likely spanned multiple generations. The volcanic stone used in the construction was sourced locally, and its intricate carvings depict scenes from the Buddha's life, teachings, and various Buddhist scriptures. These artistic details provide invaluable insights into the religious beliefs and practices of the time, as well as the daily lives and societal values of the Javanese people who contributed to the monument's creation. In the 770s and 780s, Java, under the leadership of the Sailendra dynasty, launched a series of bold naval raids on the ports of Dai Viet, Champa, and Cambodia. These raids targeted key coastal cities, including Sonte in Tonkin in 767, Nha Trang in 774, Indrapura in Cambodia in 770, and Phan Rang in 787. These aggressive campaigns reflect the maritime power and ambition of the Sailendra dynasty, which was closely linked to the Srivijaya Empire. Historians attribute these raids to either Maharaja Dharmasetu or Dharanindra, powerful rulers of the Sailendran Srivijayan alliance, who sought to extend their influence over the mainland Southeast Asian kingdoms and secure dominance over the regional trade networks. The raid on Sonte in Tonkin in 767 was one of the earliest examples of these naval campaigns, demonstrating the ability of the Sailendran Navy to project its power far beyond the Indonesian archipelago. This attack on the northern Vietnamese coast, part of the Dai Viet region, marked the beginning of a series of aggressive actions aimed at disrupting rival ports and establishing a Javanese Srivijayan presence in mainland Southeast Asia. These raids were likely motivated by a combination of economic and strategic interests, as controlling the major ports in the region would give Java and Srivijaya greater access to the lucrative maritime trade routes that connected China, Southeast Asia, and the Indian Ocean. In 774, the Javanese navy attacked Nha Trang, a coastal city in the Kingdom of Champa, located in present-day central Vietnam. This raid, along with others in the region, was aimed at weakening Champa's control over trade and asserting Sailendran Srivijayan dominance over the South China Sea. Champa was a key player in regional trade, and by disrupting its ports, the Sailendran rulers hoped to gain control over the vital maritime routes that passed through the area. The intensity and frequency of these raids reflect the rising power of the Sailendra dynasty and its ambitions to expand beyond its home base in Java. One of the most significant raids occurred in 770, when the Javanese forces captured Indrapura, an important port city in Cambodia. This successful military campaign not only disrupted Cambodian control over regional trade, but also solidified Sailendra's influence in the area. The capture of Indrapura marked a turning point in the series of naval raids, as it demonstrated the Sailendra and Srivijayan Empire's ability to conquer and hold key territories on the mainland. This move was likely part of a broader strategy to build a network of ports and vassal states that would further enhance Srivijaya's control over Southeast Asia's maritime trade routes. In the year 778 CE, the construction of Kalasan Temple in central Java marked an important milestone in the history of Indonesia's architectural and religious heritage. According to the Kalasan inscription, the temple was built by the Sailendra dynasty to honor the goddess Tara, a significant deity in Mahayana Buddhism. The temple was commissioned at the request of Buddhist monks and demonstrates the strong ties between the ruling Sailendras and the Buddhist religious community. Kalasan Temple is one of the earliest examples of Buddhist temple architecture in Java, showcasing the distinctive blend of Indian influences and local Javanese craftsmanship that characterized early temple building in the region. Kalasan Temple's architecture reflects the Mahayana Buddhist tradition that was prevalent under Sailendra rule. The temple is noted for its elaborate carvings and finely detailed reliefs, which depict scenes from Buddhist scriptures and portray various deities. Built from andesite stone, Kalasan Temple's structure includes a central chamber that housed an image of Tara, surrounded by intricately carved panels. The temple's unique octagonal design and its towering central stupa symbolize the cosmological significance of Buddhist teachings, particularly the path to enlightenment. The construction of Kalasan marked the Sailendra's commitment to Buddhism, as well as their ability to mobilize resources for grand religious projects. 14 years later, in 792 CE, the Manjusrigra, also known as Suwu Temple, was completed, according to the Manjusrigra inscription. Suwu Temple, located just north of Prambanan, is part of a larger temple complex and is one of the largest Buddhist structures in Java. Dedicated to Manjusri, the Bodhisattva of wisdom, the temple complex consists of a central sanctuary surrounded by hundreds of smaller shrines, emphasizing the Sailendra dynasty's patronage of Mahayana Buddhism and their desire to create monumental religious structures that reflected their devotion. Suwu Temple's completion further highlights the architectural and artistic achievements of the era. Suwu Temple is remarkable for its grand scale and elaborate design. The central sanctuary, surrounded by 4 rings of smaller shrines, forms a mandala, a symbolic representation of the Buddhist universe. This layout reflects the Buddhist conception of cosmology and the path toward spiritual awakening. The complex's vast size and intricate carvings showcase the sophistication of Javanese temple architecture during the Sailendra period. In addition to its religious significance, Suwu Temple illustrates the close relationship between the Sailendra rulers and the Buddhist monastic community, as well as the political and spiritual power that the dynasty sought to project through these grand monuments. In the year 800 CE, the agriculturally based Buddhist Sailendra dynasty had firmly established its rule over Sumatra and Java, marking a period of cultural, religious, and economic flourishing in the region. The Sailendra dynasty, which embraced Mahayana Buddhism, was known for its impressive temple constructions and its strategic control over fertile lands and key trade routes. Their reign saw the rise of monumental architecture, such as the construction of Borobudur, and the integration of Buddhist ideology with the political authority of the rulers. Agriculture, particularly rice cultivation, formed the economic backbone of their empire, providing the resources necessary for their grand architectural projects and religious patronage. The Sailendra dynasty's strong agricultural base was supported by the fertile volcanic soil of central Java, which allowed for the production of surplus crops, especially rice. This agricultural surplus not only sustained the population, but also enabled the ruling elite to engage in large-scale temple construction and support a vibrant court culture. The efficient irrigation systems and terraced rice fields that were developed during this time reflected the dynasty's commitment to maximizing agricultural productivity. These innovations in agriculture contributed to the stability and prosperity of the kingdom, reinforcing the power of the Shailendra rulers and allowing them to maintain control over vast territories in both Java and Sumatra. As rulers who adhered to Mahayana Buddhism, the Shailendra kings were also great patrons of the religion, which was reflected in their architectural achievements. Borobudur, which was likely constructed during the late 8th and early 9th centuries, stands as the most prominent example of the dynasty's devotion to Buddhism and their ability to mobilize resources for religious purposes. This massive temple complex, with its intricate carvings and symbolic design, was intended as a pilgrimage site and a representation of the Buddhist path to enlightenment. The Shailendra's patronage of Buddhism not only reinforced their spiritual legitimacy, but also connected them to broader religious networks in Southeast Asia and the Indian subcontinent. The Shailendra dynasty's influence was not limited to Java and Sumatra. Their control over key maritime routes further extended their reach. Positioned between the Indian Ocean and the South China Sea, the Shailendras played a crucial role in facilitating trade between India, Southeast Asia, and China. Their control over trade, combined with their agricultural wealth, allowed them to maintain a powerful and prosperous kingdom. The dynasty's strategic location along these trade routes enabled them to interact with other great powers, both Buddhist and non-Buddhist, fostering cultural exchanges and enhancing their regional influence. In conclusion, by the year 800 CE, the Shailendra dynasty had solidified its rule over Sumatra and Java, creating a powerful and agriculturally based empire that thrived on both the fertile lands and the maritime trade routes of Southeast Asia. Their devotion to Mahayana Buddhism, exemplified by their monumental temple constructions like Borobudur, showcased their religious and political aspirations. The combination of agricultural prosperity and control over trade routes allowed the Shailendras to maintain a dominant position in the region, leaving a lasting cultural and religious legacy that continues to influence Indonesian history.